Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go over Leetcode, longest common prefix question. Major tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft, LinkedIn, etc. are asking this question while they're conducting their technical interviews. I hope you will find this video tutorial helpful for your technical interview preparation. Let's start with reading the question. Write a function, Write a function to find the longest common prefix string amongst an array of strings. If there is no common prefix, return an empty string. Example 1, flower, flow, flight. Output is FL. So we need to understand what a prefix is first. A prefix is a substring that starts from 0 index character and goes up to a point in the string. So flow is a common prefix for flower and flow. Flow is the common prefix here. When we add flight into the array, then we need to trim O and W. FL is the common prefix for flower, flow, and flight. And longest common prefix is FL. So we return FL here. Example 2, dog, race car, car. There is no common prefix among the input strings. So there is no common prefix here. For example, car and race car, both of them have car here. But it should start with car. So this is not a prefix. This is a prefix, but this is not a prefix. So we return false, and dog doesn't have any of these characters anyway. Note, all the given inputs are in lowercase letters, A to Z. So let's get on the whiteboard and try to solve this question. There are a few ways of solving this question. One of them is going vertically. For example, we have this array. What we need to do is create 2 for loops and go through each character one by one and check if they are the same. And when the characters change, we simply return false. That's a O(n) square time complexity solution, and that's not quite optimal. And we need a more efficient way of solving this question. So we will look for another option here. We can use tries to solve the question. In that case, we line up all the characters in different nodes and write their count numbers next to it, how many times they appear, and return the most common ones with the highest count numbers as in the result string. Return that string as the output. That's another way of solving this question, but I'm going to show you the much simpler way. So we are going to use a horizontal approach. What we need to do is first we save the very first character, very first string, strings 0 in a string LCP. This will hold as our string. If there is a common substring, it has to be in this string. We shouldn't go look elsewhere. So we save this in an LCP string. Then we go through each of these strings one by one. Excuse me. So inside for loop, we go one by one. On each iteration, we check if this string has flower in it. Strings y, index of flower. And we do it in a while loop. If it has flower in it or not. If that's the case, we do LCP minus minus. We decrement the LCP count. So we trim the LCP one by one. To do LCP minus minus, what we do is LCP substring 0 to LCP link minus 1. That's how we trim the string one by one. So on each iteration, we check if its index of LCP is here. If not, then we do again and again, and we trim until we find flow. Then we check with the next, then we continue. Then we check with the next string as well, flight. LCP, new LCP is flow, and we start checking flow. If string OS, strings OI has LCP in it, in this case flow. If it has it, if it doesn't have it, then we start trimming LCP. Flow, and trim again. And now we hit FL. Index of FL is not equal to 0 because we have it in the flight string. And if it's end of the for loop, then we return FL as the output. That's the logic here. So, 3 steps. First, we save the very first string. Then we start looping the rest of the strings and start looking for the very first string in the rest of the strings. And in a while loop, we check if the string is in the strings. If they are not, we start trimming the very first string. We start trimming until we find. If we can't find anything, then we return empty string. That means we trimmed all the way to the empty string, so that returns empty strings. For example, in this case, we will start trimming dog. We'll save dog as a string 0 and go through dog, race, car, and car in a for loop. And we start trimming dog one by one from the end to the beginning. And finally return an empty string. The idea is we are trimming from the end. That's why we can find prefix. For example, race, car, and car. We can start from the start trimming from the beginning and find postfix, and then car, race, car, and car would be true. So this is how we trim the very first string, and we try to find the first string in all other strings. And we will start trimming one by one. And this gives us linear O(n) time complexity, and plus the index of solution time complexity. So that's pretty much it. Let's get on the whiteboard and try to solve this. Sorry, let's see it in the code. First thing we check is if array is null or linked is 0, then return empty. Save the very first string. Start looping the rest of the strings. If LCP is in the strings OI, then start trimming LCP. If long's common prefix is linked is 0, then return 0. And finally, return LCP as the output. Let's submit and see. Okay, that looks like works. So this is pretty much it for this question. I have more videos coming up. If you subscribe to my channel, we can meet again in the near future. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.